I'll just touch on a little bit of the equipment that we use, and thankfully it really is only a little bit of equipment that you'll need. One thing I've noticed about newer photographers is that they lack equipment, and that's understandable because you're just starting out and can't afford everything. But I've found that a lot of the times they're using lenses that are too short for the kind of portraits that people enjoy and photographers enjoy as well. So my recommendation is to go longer. For example, a really popular lens is a kit lens that might be 15 to 55 or something, or 18 to 55 in that focal length range. And that's really too short for most portraits. It's really better to have something longer, like in the 85 to 100 millimeter range or longer. There are quite a few photographers who just love the short telephoto lenses like the 85 1.4 or 1.2 or a 100 millimeter lens. And they have a really creamy bokeh, so they do have a pretty look. But I find that zooms are more versatile. Because I work on location, I can't predict what I'm going to need, what kind of spots, what kind of cramped locations I'll be working in. So a zoom works out better for me. Now, because I normally work on a tripod, a zoom also works better because then you don't have to pick up the tripod and move. Whereas if you're hand holding a lens, then it's a little bit easier just to move forward or backward. Anyway, both lenses have advantages, but I prefer the zooms because it simplifies my choices. Another piece of equipment I rarely see amongst newer photographers is a tripod. Yes, film, or excuse me, sensors, boy, I just dated myself. The sensor speeds are much faster than they used to be with film. However, when you go up into the high ISOs, you start to lose sharpness, you gain noise, and so the quality is just not as good. So I'm a big believer in tripods. Not always, not for sports, not for kids, not for pets, but for most portraits that are more controlled, you bet a tripod will help you. I think there are some photographers who are shooting JPEGs, and I highly recommend that you photograph in the RAW format. That allows you to change the exposure and the color later on as necessary. When you're shooting in JPEG, which is a fixed format, if you make a little mistake, you're screwed. You can't really change it much at all. So please shoot RAW. Color consistency is extremely important in portrait photography. If you're putting an album together or even just giving a collection of files to the client and the skin tones are all over the map, that's very unprofessional. So I recommend using a gray card whenever the lighting is anything but neutral. For example, on an overcast day, I don't really do much gray card shooting, but on a blue sky day or unusual lighting, absolutely. When a subject is being lit by a blue sky, they have no choice but to be blue. So that's when you need to either color correct during the photo session, or as I do, I prefer to do it in post in the RAW conversion software later on, just to make the session go quicker. As I mentioned earlier, a gray card will help you get very consistent skin tones throughout the session. However, there are times when the light that's there, the ambient light, the natural light, it doesn't have enough of a full spectrum to give you the kind of color consistency you'll need. In this image, the sunset was very close to the horizon and the sun was very warm. There was a lot of red light in it, but not much else. So trying to neutralize that, as you can see here, was a big failure. So sometimes you'll just have to accept the warmth that you have if you're only going to use natural light.